Wednesday, March 27th, 2024, and whoo boy, um, sparks were flying on the set of The View today. Uh, they opened the show with NBC firing Ronna McDaniel. At what 4 days after they hired her because of backlash from on-air talent. Um, and we went through this whole thing on Monday about her hiring, um, and what a travesty of of journalistic integrity that was. Um, but and only through pressure from online source, I mean, from on-air talent, did NBC back down and say, okay, this wasn't the right idea. Which, I mean, to me, that's just indicative of the problem of the executives, right? That they can't figure out that this was a terrible hire to begin with. That it took all of that pressure from their on-air talent to say, this is a no-go. Um, which I think is a great metaphor just in terms of executive decision making across this country in general. But it was interesting as the women were making points about um, you know having a balanced viewpoint and representing both sides and Sunny kept making a point about journalism, and it's like, most of what's the news these days isn't journalism anyway. um there is no need, if you're I mean, a true journalist is simply um providing the facts of a situation. It isn't given any particular slant or bias. The biggest problem we have is that most news now isn't of a journalistic variety. It's of an opinion variety. It's infotainment, and there is no sort of rule of balance about that kind of thing. And there is no rule about balance on the airwaves anyway. Reagan took that away, which gave us the rise of Fox News, because there used to be a Fairness Act, and because it was on broadcast networks, and if you were on a broadcast network, you weren't allowed to give one viewpoint without a counterpoint, and that doesn't exist anymore. Another great legacy of the Ronald Reagan era that started the whole downfall of this country, as far as I'm concerned. Not that we're in the shitter, but we're getting close. Anyway, so when you have that kind of, I mean, The View itself is part of that infotainment. It's part of ABC News, but it is not a news program. It's an opinion program and an entertainment program that also deals with news. So I mean, even when you look at things that are supposed to be unbiased, which is, look at network news sources. She was hired by NBC, and not looking at their punditry, but their news broadcasts. There's also a process of what stories we're going to cover, and in there's a bias. So we only get to see what certain people decide is news for us. Which makes everything really difficult. And I understand why there's a whole big population of the country that's skeptical, but also I don't think they understand why they're supposed to be skeptical, and they don't think a lot of people realize the difference between someone's opinion and what's actual news. And I think Sunny made the point that people are choosing which facts to follow. That's not journalism, though. That's again, that's punditry. That is propaganda. So the whole point is, she was a bad hire because she tried to do things that were illegal. She participated in things that are illegal. She's named I think, in one of the lawsuits. So, like, it was a terrible hire from the beginning. So I wonder how much of that 300 grand Ronna got to keep for 4 days of work, because that's not a bad gig. I mean, there's a trend. Don Lemon, we were talking about last week. He's gotten fired twice, and he's getting payouts. This is the business to be in, man. Get the contract and then get fired. Go to the fucking beach. So then they move on to the giant orange toddler is selling Bibles. He's selling Bibles, and I think it includes the Constitution in the Bible pack. They're God Bless the USA Bibles in conjunction with Lee Greenwood. That's disgusting. So there's a song I can't ever hear again. Um, but so it's a book he never read and document he's ignoring and trying to violate. Um, all in a leather bound thing and his smarmy little uh, ad. Speaking of smarmy, I'm going to go back to the last topic for a hot second. Some of the ridicule about firing Ronna Romney McDaniel. One of the quotes came from Geraldo Rivera, who said, "These aging MSNBC superstars." I don't think, Geraldo Rivera, you have any standing to talk about an aging news person. Your heyday was the '80s. Sit down and shave your fucking face because you look like a fucking fool. And then Hugh Hewitt is a moron. Um, so put him out to pasture too. Propaganda piece of crap. Anyway, that was just fascinating to me. It's like, why do we give these people air? Like, don't even put their opinion on television. They don't matter. As Joey Tribbiani would say, they're moo. It's like a cow's opinion. It doesn't matter. It's moo. But anyway, so going back to Trump selling Bibles. Um, the the hypocrisy of the whole thing about anyone thinking that there is anything in any way Christian about this man, and any person who identifies as Christian can't also support Trump. If you're supporting Trump, you can't um, honestly call yourself a Christian. He does not exemplify any of the teachings of Christ. He's not feeding the poor or healing the sick or welcoming others to the table. The only thing that he does do that could be comparable in any way to what Jesus did was hanging out with hookers. But Jesus befriended them and helped them, and Trump pays them and uses them, and then gets sued by them. And the sad thing is, he's selling a Bible to these idiots that follow him to help pay off his debts for illegal activity that couldn't be more, unchristlike. A rape, because he owes E. Jean Carroll for defaming her after being, I can't say convicted of rape because it wasn't. It was. I can't. Anyway, we all know what that story is. So the irony of them buying this Bible from this con man so that he can pay off his debts for all of the illegal, like most unholy things that he could have been doing, it's beyond me. I mean, he was a friend of Jeffrey Epstein. I don't get it. Speaking of which, I don't understand why The View has not touched the Sean P. Diddy Combs story for his involvement in sex trafficking, because his houses were both in LA and Miami, were both searched with a search warrant, so it wasn't a raid, for apparently highly credible suspicion of sex trafficking. And I don't know why that hasn't come up on The View, other than the fact that maybe some of the people on the panel don't want to talk about it, because even though we say equal, punishment for the crimes across the board, no one's above the law, sometimes when you're a friend of the show, you get a little special treatment. AKA Whoopi still supports Bill Cosby. Cringe. Anyway, so yeah, so he's selling a Bible. That's just the irony of it is just so ridiculous. And the fact that he's doing it for a grift to pay off his own legal debts is just, it, as they say, chef's kiss. Then we don't usually talk about guests, but this is where it got heated. Camille Nanjiani came on. He's in the new Ghostbusters movie. I'm going to do a little aside here because I happen to agree with Whoopi. I do believe the aliens are already here. They live among us. I don't really know what they're doing, but I think they must be laughing at us because boy, are we fucking up our planet. I don't think, if aliens found our planet that valuable, uh, I think they probably would have taken it over from us, because they're certainly watching us fuck it up, and destroy it. So that's it. Just that's I do think they're here, and um, I believe in ghosts or spirits, or that there's other energy around us that we don't necessarily see. So you know, Ghostbusters. Uh, then a young author came on. His name is Coleman. I can't remember his last name now. Who's written this book about talking about how we need to stop segregating people by race and think about people in a colorblind way. Whoopi took issue with him. Uh, Sonny Hostin was not happy um, with his book. But I think, first of all, the biggest problem so the hair on your neck goes up, and it's like is just using the expression colorblind. Is that is a giant um like bellwether to that whole idea, I don't see race. And it's something that racists actually use to try to say we're all the same, I treat everybody the same. And that's his argument, was really about taking race out of the equation when you're looking at um, how we're going to provide assistance to people, how we're going to treat people, and to make it more of an economic or socioeconomic um, uh, determination. Like if you're just talking specifically about lower income people, don't talk about blacks and Hispanics. Although maybe in wherever region you're in, the lower income people are predominantly black and Hispanics, and we do talk about that a lot. And when we talk about inner city people, that's just another way of saying, or urban. We're talking about, which is just ridiculous, because there are people of all races and religions and ethnicities when you're getting into large metropolitan areas. So his argument about speaking differently about it actually is, I agree with, and it helps take away um, that element of race that racists can hang on to say, why should I be paying for them? Or they wouldn't even say that because they don't want to appear racist, but it gets their hankles up. So his that part of it is he's making the right, I think, sort of shift. But the idea of saying colorblind, and he's saying we shouldn't be teaching children that their race is their whole identity. That is, although also true, um, what he's not accounting for, and I think what Sonny was really taking issue with, is that you're taking away a lot of what makes up who a person is, and a lot of that has to do with race experiences, depending on what race you are and where you're from. You shouldn't be looking at people, and not, if you're looking at people of color, and not say I don't see race, or looking at them as a colorblind person. We should be able to look at other races and other genders and be able to have empathy and understand that their story isn't the same as your story. And when I say empathy, I don't mean sympathy. It's not. It's about understanding what someone else's existence may have been like, or might be like, and not assuming it, but understanding that it's possibly different from yours. If you're talking about, there's easy, kind of stereotypes that you go to about, black people having a harder time hailing a cab. Um, and when you are, this whole idea of being woke and understanding that you're living in a world that's bigger than just what your existence is being able to recognize what those cues are. Something as simple as, like, in an elevator in a hotel, if you're a man and you're in the elevator with a woman, men are taught to be polite, let the woman out first, hold the door for the woman. In that situation, the right thing to do is actually go through the door first as a man, so that the woman doesn't feel like she's being followed by a strange man. It's like, and it's, you have to, so it's not like you have to be able to see and recognize um, those kinds of differences, and to make sure that and it's not about coddling anybody, and it's all about having a deeper understanding of the world around you, and and understanding how other people may be perceiving whatever it is you're doing. I'm not really explaining this right, but I don't think you want to walk around, and I think his biggest flaw in making his argument was using the term colorblind, because it perks your ears right up to say that's exactly what we don't want people to hear. And then um, Sonny got real personal about it, and saying that he's being co-opted by the right. And then he went into sort of defense mode, and like, I'm a Democrat, and I'm an independent, but I voted Democrat, and blah blah blah. And I'm not, I'm independent, and I'm not paid for by anyone to say these things or write these things, missing the whole point about what co-opted is. Because what she's saying is the words that you're using and what you're are being co-opted by racists. The racists are using your words not in the way that you intend them to be used. You're trying to say one thing, but they are taking your words and using them to justify their own racism, because they can take colorblind and mean it the way that they want to, as opposed to the way he's trying to express it. He's trying to change what that expression means when it's already kind of cemented um, in in the greater lexicon, especially when you're talking um, about racial relations and race differences, and racist behavior. So I think they were kind of right to take him to task. He's very interesting, um, and I appreciate his point of view and understanding there's differences regionally, generationally. Whoopi she's like, I don't want to say it's because you're young, but you're taking away the experience of others. And she's right. She's hit that nail on the head. That he's not, by advocating this colorblindness, you're taking away what the actual experience is to be some sort of marginalized community, or basically a non-white straight person, because that's really we have all sorts of euphemisms for what we call other people. But so good for him for going on the show. I'm not sure which one of them got him there, and I don't know how much he was aware how much he was going to get ambushed. But because they're usually pretty softbally with their guests they don't agree with, but um, he got a tough treatment from both Whoopi and um, and Sunny, and I think they all made really valid points, and that somewhere in the middle they all agree. Um, but I think the way that he's expressing what he's talking about, and skipping out on the actual personal interaction of it all, and the sort of the daily use, as opposed to speaking about policy, um, and sort of activism. So that I found really interesting. The one part of it that really irritated me, that turned me off so hard. Sonny said to him, "You're a follower of Dr. King," and he said, "Yes, I am." And she said, "I'm also a follower of Dr. King. I'm also a friend of his daughter's." Fuck you and your name check. That was unnecessary. And then she followed it up with a story that he then followed up and said, "Yeah, but if you keep reading it still goes back to." Um, and then there was a whole he said she said about what was written in some other book. So it was a lively discussion, and I think that's that's the kind of stuff we should see on TV, where it is not it was a little antagonistic on Sonny's part, but where you have a difference of opinion and you're trying to work it out. I kind of wish, um, I feel like he was unprepared for that level of nitpicking, um, but I thought he handled it beautifully, except missing out on what co-opting means. So, what a great day on The View. Now I get to go plant 25 spruce trees that got delivered this morning. All right. Happy hump day.